Hello, my name is Sandra Cowan, and I'm a librarian at the University of Lethbridge. The university's Blackfoot name is Iniskum, which means sacred buffalo stone, and it is located in the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Nation in what is now known as Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. This picture shows the university in the distance and some of the landscape of the Oldman River Valley, on whose banks the university is located. The continual flow and transition of the river can represent the living stream of knowledge, which ideally we want to flow freely, unimpeded, unobstructed to all who want or need to access it. I want to talk today about models for scholarly publishing, most of which are online these days, and many of which do indeed seem to be free. I'm taking a loose definition of publishing here, which seems reasonable in this time when scholarly publishing is in a state of major transition, at a crossroads, or perhaps a confluence, if you will. I've been struck by how students and faculty members approach both finding and publishing scholarly communication in ways very different than how I, as a librarian, have been trained to understand and to teach about the scholarly communication system. In this time of transition, there are a lot of options, a fair bit of confusion, some significant disruptions, and the scholarly communication ecosystem is changing fairly quickly. In this talk, I will take a look at different types of access to scholarly publishing, all of which are online, relatively recent innovations in the history of scholarly communication outside of the traditional commercialized scholarly journal publication system, and all of which, at least at first glance, are free. My goal in doing this comparison was to better understand some different platforms for distributing scholarly literature, and by comparing the content and scope, the licensing and funding models, and the mission and purpose of several examples, to think about whether any of these recent innovations could serve as a model for scholarly publishing in the future. I won't be covering individual open access journals, mega journals like Public Library of Science, or institutional or subject repositories. Rather, I'm going to talk about three different categories of innovations in online access to scholarly materials. The first, journal portals, like SciELO, the Scientific Electronic Library Online, African Journals Online, Humanities Commons, JStage, which is from Japan, and the biggest online journal portal with over 1,900 journal titles or 2.7 million published articles, and DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals, which functions as something of a meta portal, indexing some of the open access journals from some of these other portals. The second category of online journal article distribution is scholarly social networking sites. The two biggest and best known, at least in North America, being ResearchGate and academia.edu. The third category of journal and article distribution is pirated journal article sites like Sci-Hub and one of its competing shadow servers, Library Genesis. As I will research an example of each of these three. The examples I used are Academia, DOAJ, SciELO, and Sci-Hub. Using these as examples, I tried to find the answers to questions about who, what, when, where, how, and why for each of these. These are the questions that framed my information gathering and analysis. This slide covers when, where, how, and what each of them contains. Academia.edu is based out of San Francisco in the USA. It's a commercial for-profit business like any other social networking site, and was started with venture capital funding in 2008. It has other sources of income, such as membership fees and advertising revenue. It contains over 22 million articles that have been uploaded by users. As with most social media sites, the users and their data are also a product. So its over 160 million registered users could also be considered part of the site's content. Although it appears to be free, if you want to access any of the user metrics or find out who is interested in your work, there's a $99 annual membership fee. Additional payment could be considered to be your user data that you provide to the company. Although it claims to be open, and some of the articles uploaded by users certainly are open access, there's no copyright or licensing oversight in academia.edu. And many articles uploaded by their authors that have been published previously in a commercial journal are in fact in contravention of copyright. Academia and other scholarly social media sites have been sued by publishers over this. How legal any of the content is up for question. DOAJ was launched in 2003 in the UK with 300 open access journals. Today, this independent database contains over 15,000 peer-reviewed open access journals across disciplines. Open access journals from all countries and in all languages are welcome for inclusion. DOAJ content is free, legally open, and all the content has been vetted as genuine open access and non-predatory. It's a nonprofit funded by donations from international partners and supporters. Scielo, or the Scientific Electronic Library Online, started in Brazil in 1997, making it the most long-lived of any of my examples. It's an international open access journal portal with over 1,200 journal titles that also includes preprints and recently data. It is a cooperative effort between most of the countries in South America and expanding to include Mexico, Spain, and most recently, South Africa has joined. It's a nonprofit funded by a variety of international, national, and regional organizations, such as governments, universities, and research institutes. Scielo is free, legal, and legitimately open. Sci-Hub is a shadow site that was founded by a student, Alexandra Albakian, in 2011 in Kazakhstan in response to the high cost of research papers behind paywalls. To quote, Sci-Hub provides access to hundreds of thousands of research papers every day, effectively bypassing any paywalls and restrictions. It contains between 85 and 95% of all published articles, well over 85 million papers in total. To quote Bohannon from his 2016 article, Sci-Hub has amassed copies of the majority of scholarly articles ever published. It continues to grow. When someone requests a paper not already in Sci-Hub, it pirates a copy and adds it to the repository, end quote. Sci-Hub is free to use, but relies on Bitcoin donations from users to fund it. It is portrayed as an altruistic service, and it's not clear if there's any profit to be made from it. Sci-Hub is not legal, and it is not open in the genuine sense of open access because the content has been pirated in complete disregard of copyright and licensing. This slide shows the mission statements for each, giving us some insight into their purpose or why they were developed. With the exception of Scielo, I found this information easily on their websites. The mission of academia.edu is to accelerate the world's research. Our goal is to speed up research in every domain, finding a solution to climate change, finding cures for diseases, evolving artificial intelligence. We want to accelerate research in all these fields and others too. What's interesting about this is that it is all about speed, efficiency, acceleration, implying that speediness in research will solve the world's problems. DOAJ's mission is to increase the visibility, accessibility, reputation, usage, and impact of quality, peer-reviewed, open access, scholarly research journals globally, regardless of discipline, geography, or language. DOAJ is committed to being 100% independent and maintaining its primary services and metadata as free to use or reuse for everyone. The principle of openness and access underlies DOAJ's mission. They aim for diversity in discipline, geography, language, overall, a much more inclusive vision of scholarly publishing, grounded in high quality open access scholarship. SciELO's core mission, as reported by Berger, is to engender south-to-south interchange and share its infrastructure on a global level. From SciELO's own site, they go on to explain, the objective of SciELO is to contribute to the development of scientific research by improving and expanding the means, infrastructures, and communication capacities, and evaluating its results published by journals of increasing quality of various member countries, published in open access and progressively aligned with the communication practices of open science. To achieve its objective, SciELO contributes to the systematic and sustainable increases of visibility, accessibility, quality, credibility, use, and national and international impact of quality journals through its indexing, publication, and interoperability on the web in national, regional, global, or thematic collections. The value of regionalism and inclusive internationalism shows up here, which is a response to the exclusion of the Global South from colonial mainstream Global North publishing. Alongside this is the value of openness and of a sustainable and shared infrastructure, network, and community, which are all key to SciELO's purpose and success. Sci-Hub's stated mission is to remove any barrier impeding the widest possible distribution of knowledge in human society. Sci-Hub presents itself as an open access provider of scholarly articles whose purpose is to wrench research content from the control of commercial publishers and wealthy institutions and make it available to the world as a public good. Now that we're pretty familiar with each of these online scholarly communication platforms, the pros and cons of each become clearer. Academia is a social media site for scholars, and it's sometimes referred to as Facebook for academics. To quote Pooley from her 2018 article, the service has been called Facebook for academics, and the analogy is fitting. Academia.edu mimics core social media conventions down to follower counts, curated profiles with pics, and a scrollable newsfeed bulletin of followers' uploads. But its reliance on user-facing metrics exceeds anything you'll find on mainstream social media. It comes with a dedicated analytics page resembling a gaming leaderboard or a corporation's annual report. So some of the advantages of Facebook are similar to advantages of other social media platforms. And these include networking, or being able to easily connect with people with similar interests. Apparently, there is a citation advantage of having your work on academia. And of course, everyone is using it. So the popularity of it and the critical mass of researchers using it makes it easier to connect with other researchers. It provides visibility, attention to your research, and a platform for self-promotion. Some of the disadvantages include, again, some of the disadvantages that are the same for many social media sites. So the biggest disadvantage is that academia is a for-profit business with no real commitment to open science or research as a public good. Its main purpose is to generate a profit. Another disadvantage is that they charge for service and that your content and your user data could be monetized at any time. There's no inclusion criteria. There's no copyright and licensing oversight, which has led to questionable practices and publisher lawsuits. There's a lack of longevity and preservation. The whole thing could disappear at any time due to merger, acquisition, or bankruptcy. And finally, sites like academia generate confusion about genuine open access. I know many professors who, understandably, have some difficulty distinguishing between academia and our library's institutional repository. and mistakenly believe that uploading an article to academia or ResearchGate will fulfill their open access requirements. The Directory of Open Access Journals is the most comprehensive directory of legitimate open access journals currently available. It's committed to genuine open access, which is about making research literature available online without price barriers and without most permission barriers. It has many pros. It's genuinely and completely open access. It's free and legal. As with all open access publication, there is a clear citation advantage and an impact advantage. It has longevity. It's proven to be a sustainable option over a number of years. And it has high quality content due to its rigorous inclusion criteria that excludes predatory journals. The only con that I can really think of is that DOHA is not very well known. It doesn't have the profile or the reputation among researchers that any of the other examples here do. Scielo has so many advantages. It's free, it's legal, it has high quality content and a significant quantity of content. In fact, it contains such a large quantity of high quality journals that it has been able to negotiate with commercial giants like Scopus and Web of Science for indexing in their databases. Scielo has proven to be very sustainable due to its funding model, its cultural relevance, and its model of international cooperation. It has a robust network and infrastructure that has not been corrupted by commercial publishing enterprises or commercial infrastructures. It's genuinely open access and nonprofit. It has proven longevity and stability over time. And it's based on democratic and social justice ethics. The only potential con that I could think of for Scielo is that for the English dominant North, most of the content is actually in Spanish or Portuguese, although often with English abstracts. So it's not as accessible to the English-speaking scholarly community. Sci-Hub is an interesting creature. The research I did about Sci-Hub really made me expand my thinking about it. To quote Bohannon, Sci-Hub is an awe-inspiring act of altruism or a massive criminal enterprise, depending on whom you ask, end quote. I was surprised by how many pros I found in support of it. The main thing, of course, is that it's a way to get around paywalls and toll access and get free access to scholarly journal articles. It provides equality of access. So it's available to rich countries, rich and poor institutions, rich and poor individuals, regardless of where they are, regardless of their ability to pay for journal subscriptions. It's hard to argue with a researcher who calculates the cost of their toll access research articles that they need and find out that it's higher than their monthly living expenses. For many parts of the world and for many people, access who don't have access to journal subscriptions and just cannot afford to pay the high cost of toll access journal articles, this is actually a viable option. It also provides convenience of access. It seems to be easier to use than a number of other online access points to journal literature. And everyone's using it. It's become really normalized. Everything is in it. 85 to 95% of published articles can be found in one place on Sci-Hub. It has a robust network, and it has been shown also to increase citation and impact. Finally, the disruption that it causes to the current unsustainable scholarly communication system is interesting. So similar to academia and to ResearchGate, Sci-Hub is a disruptor that really can't be ignored. It is a response to the broken scholarly publishing system, and it may be one of the game changers that force a change, an evolution, a revisioning of scholarly communication in the 21st century. In a 2018 study by Nicholas, French researchers perceived that, quote, by using Sci-Hub, they contributed to the advancement of a reformist and revolutionary movement, which would lead to a more open scholarly world. Indeed, there seemed to be an element of defiance about their use of Sci-Hub. They were breaking the rules in order to obtain a greater access to scientific knowledge. So what was wrong with that, they argued. Sci-Hub no longer seemed to pose a problem for early career researchers or even their libraries, threatening as it did to fight publishers, the library's enemy, unquote. Of course, the list of disadvantages is also very long for Sci-Hub. Much of the content has been acquired illegally by phishing for login credentials, probably by hacking, and certainly through copyright infringement. Lawsuits and criminal charges have been laid against its founder. Like academia, it generates confusion about genuine open access by calling itself open. And its increasingly common use creates inaccurate library use metrics for those institutions that have legitimate journal subscriptions, which may lead them to cancel subscriptions based on the misperception of low use. And finally, its long-term viability and continuity does seem unlikely given the criminal charges and the lawsuits. This graphic, which is 5 years old already, shows how widespread the use of Sci-Hub is. Although the country that shows the greatest use is Iran, the use of Sci-Hub is by no means restricted to areas which have limited access to commercial subscription scholarly publications. It is widely used, even by researchers who have access to journal literature through their university or institution. It is, sadly, easier for many people to access articles through a pirated source than to navigate their library's online systems. If I were to choose one of these as a model for future scholarly publishing, I would really have to choose Sciello. It is very robust, networked, and sustainable. And it also maintains a rigorous inclusion criteria, making it a consistently high quality scholarly resource. The fact that it is not for profit and open access in the true sense of the phrase are also very important. It will not disappear due to successful publisher lawsuits or be shut down due to copyright infringement. It will not disappear or suddenly be monetized when a corporation goes out of business or is acquired by another company. It does rely on public funding from a variety of national and regional governments, universities, research institutes, and so on. And any one of these sources of funding could cease, but it's unlikely that they all would. This funding model seems more stable and predictable than a corporate model. Sciello is based on the Latin American philosophy that scholarly and scientific outputs belong to the academy and to the public, not to commercial publishers, and their tradition of free, open, and cooperative publishing. Based on an international network of regional and local scholars and organizations, and resolutely non-commercial, Sciello is sustainable on many fronts: economic, policy and openness of publication, preservation, and from the point of view of diversity and social justice as well. As Berger says in her excellent 2021 article, Bibliodiversity at the Center, Decolonizing Open Access, Latin American open access is profoundly anti-colonial and independent. Originating in Chile in 1990, the concept of bibliodiversidad, or bibliodiversity, embraces the local in publishing and supports the decolonization of knowledge, especially in the South. Why not expand this idea to the rest of the world and use models like Sciello to fight epistemic injustice everywhere? Beyond its funding model, policies, and infrastructure, this spirit of anti-colonialism, cooperation, and inclusion is what is worth modeling future scholarly communication publishing systems after. To quote from Berger, this article argues that through the employment of bibliodiversity, a sustainable anti-colonial ethos and practice developed in Latin America, The South can reclaim and decolonize open access and nurture scholarly communications. Self-determination and locality are at the core of bibliodiversity, which rejects the domination of international English language journal publishing. As articulated by the Jussieu call, wide-ranging scholarly community-based, nonprofit, and sustainable models for open access are integral to bibliodiversity, as is reform of research evaluation systems. If we think of scholarship and knowledge in an inclusive and anti-colonial way as a public good, as belonging to community and society, we wouldn't want to create dams in the form of paywalls and for-profit models that funnel resources away from community. Rather, a model like Sciello ensures that the river of knowledge and scholarship continues to flow unimpeded. And here is my bibliography, which I would be happy to share. Thank you for your attention. I have enjoyed this journey of researching these options of scholarly publication. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions or wish to discuss further. Thank you.